Lesson 90. To have something done. Homework. What does the structure, to have something done, communicate?
The structure, to have something done, communicates that we don't do the action ourselves, but that somebody else does it for us.
Give me an example, please.
I don't cut my hair myself. I have my hair cut by a hairdresser.
Do you clean your shoes yourself, or do you have them cleaned by someone else?
I clean my shoes myself.
What can we use instead of the verb to have?
We can use the verb to get instead of the verb to have.
Do very young children sometimes get their homework done for them by their parents?
Yes, very young children sometimes get their homework done for them by their parents.
Power. Powerful. Laptop. Desktop. Do you think governments generally have too much power?
Yes, I think governments generally have too much power.
Who do you think is the most powerful person in this country?
I think the Prime Minister is the most powerful person in this country.
Do laptops use more power than desktop computers?
No, laptops don't use more power than desktop computers. They use less power.
Save. Rescue. Protect. Spend. Do you spend all your money, or do you try to save some and put it in the bank?
I don't spend all my money. I try to save some and put it in the bank.
If you saw someone in difficulty in the sea, how would you try to save their life?
If I saw someone in difficulty in the sea, I'd try to save their life by swimming to them and helping them.
What does an old man carry to save himself from falling over while walking?
An old man carries a walking stick to save himself from falling over while walking.
Would you save any time if you used a different means of transport to come to school?
Yes, I'd save some time if I used a different means of transport to come to school.
When you close a computer program, does it usually remind you to save your work first?
Yes, when I close a computer program, it usually reminds me to save my work first.
Trade. Tradesman. Skill. Bake. Baker. Butcher. Builder. What kind of things does your country mainly trade in?
My country mainly trades in vegetables.
What do we usually mean by a trade?
By a trade, we usually mean a job that a person does mainly with their hands, and for which they need a special skill.
What's one of the best paid trades in your country?
One of the best paid trades in my country is the trade of a builder.
Close. Close. What's the difference between the words close and close?
The difference between the words close and close is that close is a verb meaning shut, whereas close is an adjective meaning near.
What's the closest you've ever been to real danger?
The closest I've ever been to real danger was when I fell off my bike.
Trip. Fortnight. If you went on a trip to New York, what would you see?
If I went on a trip to New York, I'd see the Statue of Liberty, Central Park, and the Empire State Building.
When people go on business trips, do their companies usually pay for everything?
Yes, when people go on business trips, their companies usually pay for everything.
Which would you prefer? An exciting trip to a big city for the weekend, or a quiet fortnight on the beach?
I'd prefer a quiet fortnight on the beach.
Every now and again. What does the expression every now and again mean?
The expression every now and again means:
Is it a good idea to give one's house a thorough cleaning from top to bottom every now and again?
Yes, it's a good idea to give one's house a thorough cleaning from top to bottom every now and again.
No longer. What do you do with clothes that you no longer wear?
I give away clothes that I no longer wear.
Island. What's an island?
An island is a piece of land completely surrounded by water.
Ocean. Atlantic. Pacific. Indian. Name me some oceans, please.
The names of some oceans are the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean.
Screen. DVD. CD. Do you prefer to watch films at home on DVD or at the cinema on the big screen?
I prefer to watch films at home on DVD.
Do you buy CDs and DVDs more often in the shops or online?
I buy CDs and DVDs more often online.
Is it bad for your eyes to look at a computer screen for too long?
Yes, it's bad for your eyes to look at a computer screen for too long.
Produce. What does your country produce?
My country produces cars and vegetables.
Boast. What kind of things do people often boast about?
People often boast about their jobs, things that they own, etc.
Necessity. Is wearing a tie a necessity for some occupations these days?
Yes, wearing a tie is a necessity for some occupations these days.
Lesson 91. Tell. Say. What's the most important difference between tell and say?
The most important difference between tell and say is that after tell, we indicate the person we are speaking to, but after say, we usually do not.
Give me an example, please.
She told him that it was important. She said it was important.
After the verb say, how is it possible to indicate the person we are speaking to?
After the verb say, it's possible to indicate the person we are speaking to by using the word to.
For direct speech, which verb do we normally use? Say or tell?
For direct speech, we normally use the verb say.
Give me an example, please.
She said, I'm hungry.
Which of these sentences is correct? He told me to go away, or he said me to go away.
The first sentence, he told me to go away, is correct.
Risen. What are the three forms of rise?
The three forms of rise are rise, rose, risen.
Have you ever risen before the sun has risen?
Yes, I've sometimes risen before the sun has risen.
Gain. Transaction. Degree. What's the difference between to earn and to gain?
The difference between to earn and to gain is that the verb to earn generally means to receive money for work done, whereas the verb to gain means to get more of something.
If you bought a business for £4 million and sold it later for half that amount, would you be gaining by doing so?
No. If I bought a business for £4 million and sold it later for half that amount, I wouldn't be gaining by doing so. I'd be losing.
How much would your loss be?
My loss would be £2 million.
Does your watch generally gain or lose time, or does it keep perfect time?
My watch generally loses time.
What's the best way to gain friends?
The best way to gain friends is to be nice to people.
How long does it take the average student to gain a degree at university in your country?
It takes the average student about 3 years to gain a degree at university in my country.
As regards learning a language, would you gain anything by going to the country where it was spoken?
Yes, as regards learning a language, I'd gain something by going to the country where it was spoken.
Why?
Because I'd be able to speak the language every day.
Mark. Out of. Petrol. Well known. Trademark. Are there any marks on these walls?
Yes, there are some marks on these walls.
What kind of marks are they?
They're all kinds of marks.
Who marks your dictations?
I mark my dictations myself.
How many marks did you get in your last English exam?
I got 80 marks out of 100 in my last English exam.
Which petrol company do you think has the most well-known trademark?
I think Shell has the most well-known trademark.
Base. Basis. Basic. What part of the book is this?
It's the bottom or the base of the book.
What do you consider to be the basis of a good life?
I consider good health to be the basis of a good life.
Is it normal for language learners to continue making basic grammatical mistakes even though they know the rules?
Yes, it's normal for language learners to continue making basic grammatical mistakes even though they know the rules.
What do you think is basically the difference between your own language and English?
I think that, basically, the difference between my own language and English is the pronunciation and the grammar.
Include. When you stay at a hotel for one night, does the price you pay usually include breakfast?
Yes, when you stay at a hotel for one night, the price you pay usually includes breakfast.
Brush. What do we use to clean our shoes with?
We use a shoe brush to clean our shoes with.
What other kinds of brushes are there?
There are hairbrushes, toothbrushes, paintbrushes, etc.
Box. Do you like to watch boxing?
No, I don't like to watch boxing.
Why not?
Because it's very unpleasant.
Type. What type of film do you watch most?
I watch comedies the most.
Can you type?
Yes, I can type.
How many words a minute?
About 30 words a minute.
Previous. Occasion. Wedding. Video. Have you met me on many previous occasions?
Yes, I've met you on many previous occasions.
Did you have any previous experience of the Callan method before you came here?
No, I didn't have any previous experience of the Callan method before I came here.
Why do people often make videos of special occasions like weddings?
People often make videos of special occasions like weddings so that they can remember them better.
Plan. Interfere. Interference. What do we mean by a street plan of a town?
By a street plan of a town, we mean a map showing the streets of the town and their names.
Do you usually write your plans in a diary?
No, I don't usually write my plans in a diary.
Do you think it's a good idea for teenagers to plan their futures while still at school?
Yes, I think it's a good idea for teenagers to plan their futures while still at school.
Why?
Because they can consider their choices for longer.
Do you think a young person should be allowed to plan their own future without the interference of their parents?
No, I don't think a young person should be allowed to plan their own future without the interference of their parents.
Why not?
Because young people don't always know what's best. Lesson
Strange
92.
looking.
The two types of auxiliary verb. Primary. Modal. What are the two basic types of auxiliary verb in English?
The two basic types of auxiliary verb in English are primary auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries.
What are the primary auxiliaries?
The primary auxiliaries are the verbs be, have, and do.
When do we use the auxiliary be?
We use the auxiliary be to make the continuous tenses and the passive voice.
Give me an example, please.
I am speaking English now. This book was printed in England.
When do we use the auxiliary have?
We use the auxiliary have for the perfect tenses.
Give me an example, please.
He has gone to Scotland.
When do we use the auxiliary do?
We use the auxiliary do for the present simple and past simple.
Give me an example, please.
I don't speak Spanish. Did she eat the pasta?
What are the 10 common modals?
The 10 common modals are can, could, will, would, may, might, shall, should, must, and ought.
What ideas do modals normally express?
Modals normally express ideas about necessity or possibility.
Now, I will give you a sentence, and you say a sentence with the same meaning, but with a modal. John is able to speak French.
John can speak French.
Perhaps he works in a bank.
He may, or might, work in a bank.
It is necessary for me to go to bed now.
I must go to bed now.
You are not allowed to smoke in this building.
You can't, or mustn't, smoke in this building.
What do we put after a modal?
We put the infinitive without to after a modal.
Give me an example, please.
I must send this email today.
Which modal is the only exception to this rule?
Ought is the only exception to this rule.
Give me an example, please.
I ought to see a doctor.
Set. What does the word set mean?
The word set means
How long is the time set for a game of football?
the time set for a game of football is 90 minutes. That is 45 minutes each way.
What kind of life do you think is better? A life where you have a set time for doing everything, such as eating, sleeping, etc., or a life where you do these things whenever you want?
I think a life where you have a set time for doing everything, such as eating, sleeping, etc., is better than a life where you do these things whenever you want.
What did I set down on the table when I came into the room at the beginning of the lesson?
You set your book down on the table when you came into the room at the beginning of the lesson.
If your watch isn't showing the right time, what do you have to do?
If my watch isn't showing the right time, I have to set it right.
Sunrise. Sunset. What time is sunrise at the moment?
Sunrise is at about 7 a.m. at the moment.
And what time is sunset?
Sunset is at about 6 p.m.
Duty. Society. On duty. Off duty. Driver. Fine. What do you consider to be the duty a person owes to the society in which they live?
I consider that the duty a person owes to the society in which they live is to be honest, hard-working, etc.
What are the duties of a policeman?
The duties of a policeman are to give people help and information, catch criminals, etc.
Do policemen wear their uniforms when they're off duty?
No, policemen don't wear their uniforms when they're off duty. They only wear them when they're on duty.
If you brought a foreign car into this country, would you have to pay duty on it?
Yes, if I brought a foreign car into this country, I'd have to pay duty on it.
And if you didn't pay, what'd happen?
If I didn't pay, they might make me pay a fine, and even take the car away from me.
Various. What are the various ways of learning a language?
The various ways of learning a language are at school with a teacher, going to the country where the language is spoken, practicing with a friend, listening to the radio, watching TV, etc.
Entertainment. Is there much entertainment for teenagers in your hometown?
Yes, there is a lot of entertainment for teenagers in my hometown.
Weight. Equal. Is the weight of these two chairs about equal?
Yes, the weight of these two chairs is about equal.
Operate. Operation. Would you find it interesting to operate a factory machine?
No, I wouldn't find it interesting to operate a factory machine.
Why not?
Because you do the same thing again and again.
Have you ever had an operation in hospital?
Yes, I've had an
Lesson
operation in
93.
hospital.
By. By the time. Give me a sentence containing the words by the time.
By the time she gets here, dinner will be ready.
What does by the time mean in that sentence?
By the time in that sentence means at some point between now and when she gets here.
By the time you are 90 years old, do you suppose your hair will be grey?
Yes, by the time I'm 90 years old, I suppose my hair will be grey.
Will your English have improved by this time next month?
Yes, my English will have improved by this time next month.
As well as. Can you speak English as well as you speak your own language?
No, I can't speak English as well as I speak my own language. I speak it worse than my own language.
Do you take English lessons on Sunday as well as during the week?
No, I don't take English lessons on Sunday as well as during the week.
What does that last question mean, in other words?
That last question means you take English lessons during the week, but do you also take English lessons on Sunday?
Elder. Eldest. What's the difference between the words older and elder?
The difference between the words older and elder is that we generally use the word elder when speaking about people in the same family, and we cannot say elder than.
Have you got an elder brother?
No, I haven't got an elder brother.
Are you the eldest in your family?
No, I'm not the eldest in my family.
Who is?
My grandfather is the eldest in my family.
Let. Rent. Advertise. In exchange for. What's the difference between to let and to rent?
The difference between to let and to rent is that to let means to lend something in exchange for money, whereas to rent means to borrow something in exchange for money.
Supposing you had a house or a flat to let, how would you advertise it?
Supposing I had a house or a flat to let, I'd advertise it in the newspaper or on the internet.
What's the average monthly rent for a small flat in this town?
The average monthly rent for a small flat in this town is about £1,000.
How much does it cost to rent a car for one day in this town?
It costs about £40 to rent a car for one day in this town.
Do you ever rent DVDs to watch at home?
Yes, I sometimes rent DVDs to watch at home.
Is it common in your country for people to rent out rooms in their house, to students, for example?
Yes, it's common in my country for people to rent out rooms in their house to students.
Fallen. What are the three forms of fall?
The three forms of fall are fall, fell, fallen.
Have you ever fallen out of bed in the middle of the night?
Yes, I've fallen out of bed in the middle of the night.
Chose. What's the past of the verb to choose?
The past of the verb to choose is chose.
Did you choose the clothes you're wearing yourself?
Yes, I chose the clothes I'm wearing myself.
Such a. Why do you suppose football is such a popular game?
I suppose football is such a popular game because it's enjoyable to play and to watch.
Why is a desert such a difficult place to live in?
A desert is such a difficult place to live in because there's so little water.
Provide. Providing. Provided. Ghost. Is a soldier's uniform provided for him by the government?
Yes, a soldier's uniform is provided for him by the government.
How do parents provide for their children?
Parents provide for their children by making sure they have all the things they need in life.
If you had just bought a house and then someone told you that there was a ghost in it, what would you do? Providing, of course, you believed in ghosts.
If I had just bought a house and then someone told me there was a ghost in it, I'd sell it, providing I believed in ghosts.
Straight. Are you going to go straight home after the lesson?
Yes, I'm going to go straight home after the lesson.
If you came to some crossroads while driving a car and, instead of stopping, you kept straight on, what might happen?
If I came to some crossroads while driving a car and instead of stopping I kept straight on, an accident might happen.
Consist. How many days does a fortnight consist of?
A fortnight consists of 14 days.
Place. Why do we have to place an egg carefully on the table?
We have to place an egg carefully on the table because it could easily break.
Commence. Academic. In which month does the academic year commence in your country?
The academic year commences in September in my country.
Lesson 94.
Colony.
Appear. Disappear. Appearance. Get to know. What's my hand doing?
Your hand is appearing and disappearing from under the table.
Does it appear to you that people in the world are becoming happier or less happy?
It appears to me that people in the world are becoming less happy.
Why?
Because everybody wants more than they have.
Do you judge people by appearances, or do you wait until you get to know them well?
I don't judge people by appearances. I wait until I get to know them well.
Which way of judging is fairer?
Judging people after getting to know them well is fairer.
Double. If we double the number 25, what do we get?
If we double the number 25, we get 50.
How wide is a double bed?
A double bed is about double the width of a single bed.
Trouble. Take the trouble. Look up. Dictionary. Modern. Do you have trouble remembering all the rules of grammar in English?
Yes, I have trouble remembering all the rules of grammar in English.
When children get into trouble, do they sometimes tell lies in order to get themselves out of trouble?
Yes, when children get into trouble, they sometimes tell lies in order to get themselves out of trouble.
When you are reading a book in your own language and you see a word you don't know the meaning of, do you take the trouble to look it up in a dictionary, or do you just keep on reading?
When I'm reading a book in my own language and I see a word I don't know the meaning of, I take the trouble to look it up in a dictionary.
Do dreams sometimes trouble you at night?
Yes, dreams sometimes trouble me at night.
What do you think is the trouble with modern life?
I think the trouble with modern life is that everything is expensive and people don't have enough time.
Change of spelling with comparison of adjectives. Final. Spelling. When do we double the final consonant of an adjective in forming its comparative and its superlative?
We double the final consonant of an adjective in forming its comparative and its superlative when it ends in a single consonant preceded by a single vowel.
Give me an example, please.
Thin, thinner than, the thinnest.
What happens when an adjective ends in a consonant plus y?
When an adjective ends in a consonant plus y, the y is changed to I.
Give me an example, please.
Lucky, luckier than, the luckiest.
Though. Give me an example of the word though, please.
I didn't like the food he cooked. I ate it, though. Though she was feeling ill, she went on the business trip.
Delay. When you have something unpleasant to do you delay doing it, or do you do it at once without delay?
When I have something unpleasant to do, I delay doing it.
Which is better, though, to delay doing things, or to do things at once without delay?
It's usually better to do things at once without delay.
When pupils are late for lessons, what kind of things have usually delayed them?
When pupils are late for lessons, the kind of things that have usually delayed them are oversleeping, transport, etc.
Across. Come across. Forest. What must you do before you walk across the road?
I must look both ways before I walk across the road.
What can you see across the street, or road, field, etc., from this window?
I can see another building across the street from this window.
If you can't get across a river by bridge, how can you get across?
If you can't get across a river by bridge, you can get across by boat or by swimming across.
If you were walking in a forest and suddenly came across a tiger, what did you do?
If I were walking in a forest and suddenly came across a tiger, I'd stand completely still.
Work. Tell. If a lift isn't working, what do we have to do?
If a lift isn't working, we have to take the stairs.
Do you think it's possible to tell a person's character just by looking at their face?
No, I don't think it's possible to tell a person's character just by looking at their face.
Can we often tell where somebody comes from by their accent?
Yes, we can often tell where somebody comes from by their accent.
Luggage. Check in. Check out. Reception. Receptionist. When you arrive at a hotel, where do you check in?
When you arrive at a hotel, you check in at the reception desk.
And what does the receptionist hand you when you finish checking in?
The receptionist hands you the key to the room when you've finished checking in.
On the day you leave a hotel, what time do you usually have to check out by?
On the day you leave a hotel, you usually have to check out by noon.
At the airport, do you usually check in all your luggage, or do you carry some of it onto the plane with you?
At the airport, I usually carry some of my luggage onto the plane with me.
Defend. If someone says things about you which are not true, do you think it's better to defend yourself, or just keep quiet?
If someone says things about me which are not true, I think it's better to defend myself.
Congratulations. On what occasions do we say congratulations to people?
We say congratulations to people when they pass an exam, get married, have a baby, etc.